preaching is to have, instead of one big sermon, little pockets of testimonies and probably small sermonettes from various members of the church using various mediums. So we'll have some poetry, we'll have an interview, and we'll have just general sharing. Great. All right, so I would like, if possible, to have on the screen the first presentation. So the first person that could not stay for the whole session but did agree was our brother Mackie. Now, Mackie's testimony comes in the form of poetry, which kind of actually outlines his testimony, his conversion to faith, and things about his life that he probably wouldn't readily speak about. Let me turn off the lights back there. And here is sharing by our brother, Rachel McPherson.
Was that this is exposure. This is emotional exposure. The first thought that came to mind was that this is exposure. This is emotional exposure. And of course the question is, am I ready? I recognize firstly the work that I have done to be emotionally honest with myself. That was the first thing that I noticed. If I were trying to write this, let's just say 5 years ago, I would be quite disheveled and be in a state of just of sorrow. Let's put it that way. Because I had not yet finished or learned how to properly process my emotions or process my trauma. My quick encouragement to anyone listening and anyone in earshot of this poem and what's taking place now is that your pain and your trauma and your experiences, the bad ones especially, will seem insurmountable at the given time, will seem like there's absolutely no one who understands. I promise you, and I guarantee you, there are people who understand. There is always help. There is always a safe way to get your feelings and your emotions out. Yeah. In the quiet moments, a whisper calls, a gentle knock on my heart's old walls. Through years of struggle, sin and pain, a light breaks through, like morning rain. From depths of shadows, where past mistake lies, where immorality's echoes just won't die. And health, fragile as autumn leaves, he stands there patiently and believes. A fractured family, faith worn thin, in childhood's darkness, where sorrows begin. With trauma's hold and depression's shade, yet through it all, his call has stayed. Inadequacy's relentless chase, fear of success and failure's embrace. In anger's fire, in lies I've told, still he stands, steadfast and bold. Behold, he stands at the door and knocks. Through every trial, through every shock. His love, unwavering, pure and bright, he waits for me, in darkest night. With open arms, he beckons me, dispelling fear, setting me free. In every tear and anguished cry, he's always been my silent guide. No longer bound by sin's cruel thread, I reach for him, my daily bread. In his love I find my place, learning now to give myself grace. No more the chains of past demands, I walk with him hand in hand. For in his grace I find my way, redeemed, restored, each blessed day.
And I thank him, though he's not here, thank you, Maki, for your openness and your willingness to share. Because that was a very personal, and it took a little time to film. Okay, moving on to our second video, one of the other persons that decided to come and share was our own Auntie Kay. And she and I sat down and got to talking, and we just filmed the conversation as to her story. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for saying yes to this as a prompt. I'm actually looking forward to where this conversation leads. When I was thinking and kind of praying, Lord, who should I talk to? I literally heard audibly in my mind, Auntie Kay.
Oh boy.
So here we are. We're talking about being encouraged by each other's faith. What is something that you have either walked through, overcome, maybe a thought process that has developed that has made you and your conviction in Christ a firm, real one?
Okay. So when I thought it through, I said the easiest one to do would be to tell you how I became a doctor.
Okay.
Because I had no intention of being a doctor at all.
Real.
No, I didn't know what I wanted to be. Yeah, which is like most young people. Most young people don't know what they want to be. So I didn't know what I wanted to be, but a doctor wasn't one of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So I came to university because my friends came to university.
Oh.
We were at a little group at the school, so they were applying, so I decided, okay, let me apply too. I didn't have anything else to do. I had gone to, my mother had taken me to a teacher's college, and at the time they had said I was too young. I was in 5th form at the time, so they said, no, she's too young. So I went to 6th form with them. I should tell you that one of the things that impacted my decision was that my father had died when I was in 4th form. And he had angina.
Okay.
And the last time I saw him, angina is the pain you get from not having enough blood supply to your heart.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
So the last time I saw him was doubled over in pain at home, and I ran to tell my mother, and she took him to the hospital. And he was getting better. He was doing well. So everybody expected him to come home. Then lo and behold, somebody called to say my father had died. But my mother told us that she was always very appreciative of how the doctors had operated at the time.
Okay.
Because they tried very hard to save him, and that impacted me in my head. That people would be like that. So when I had a chance to think about it, I said, if I could become a doctor, perhaps I should. So I said that one summertime when I was helping with VBS and we were talking.
All right.
Yeah. So that time I'd already been to university 1 year.
Oh.
And didn't know what I was going to do. My friends were applying to medicine, so I said, okay, if I could, I really should, So I felt that I owed it to people since my father had been helped so much, even though he had died by doctors. So I applied, forgot about it. And then one day on a hall, somebody bawling out my name, Kia, Kia. Went to answer the phone. I answered the phone, and the people from the bursary were saying, why haven't you come to take up your this offer that we have for you? I said, which offer? To do medicine. So I said, aye. So anyway, I went, you say, aye. It didn't work out.
Like, God, I really wasn't hoping.
I was really hoping. So I went and took up the offer and got into medicine, and with the reassurance that this was what God wanted me to do. So I wasn't very, very worried when it came to exams and so on. And I was never usually worried about exams in any case. So unfortunately, I was one of those who just read the book one time and
you one of those bright sparks.
yeah. So, but the first year, or first exam, the first term, I actually failed.
Oh.
So, I got my act together and I really started to study and do the work because God had sent me to this place. So I needed to and the other thing that came through, again, I knew God was in it, was in my final year, my final term, because at that time we used terms and semester. In my final term, I'd run out of money. All my boarding grant had gone, all my student loan thing had gone. So I never had any money. I think somebody told me about applying for a bursary, and again, I forgot about it until somebody called me again to say, why haven't you turned up to accept this bursary? So I accepted bursary. And so that strengthened my faith quite a bit. And being at university strengthened my faith too, because when I was leaving, I brought these books.
Know what you believe.
Right. I know why you believe.
Know why you believe.
Right.
Okay.
When I was leaving Montego Bay, I had gotten these
You're
books. I'm from Montego Bay, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mount Salem, in fact. But in those days, Mount Salem wasn't the Mount Salem like it is now. It was for low and low income, very low income people, but it wasn't, we weren't shooting each other. Right. Yeah. So, so one of the elders gave me these books. And it's important because when my father died, I had just become a Christian, or I became a Christian shortly after. I can't seem to remember and fit the dates together. And unfortunately, my friends were Christians, so we were all good Christians together. But in sixth form, this teacher we had mentioned somebody called Voltaire. Voltaire said God is dead. And that affected me quite a bit. So I was glad to have these books when I went to university. And it so happened that year and probably the year after, a lot of Christian young people came to university. And I think it's still impacting our lives now, we're impacting our country as a result. A lot of them came to university, and in fact, we kind of transformed the campus, because we had Christian persons who were in the guild and so on. But what really made a difference to me, having heard about this Voltaire who said God is dead and had to work through that, was when we had a crusade on campus. And
you can pause. I can edit it. It's fine.
Okay. And Burley Adair came on campus and preached the gospel. And to me, it was something else to hear the gospel preached in a place that was tacitly atheist.
Okay.
That and we are not afraid, we are not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. I think that's what he preached from, because it is for our salvation. I remember the words now.
That's Romans
But
1:16, right?
yes, Romans, yeah. And he preached from that, and it made such a difference to my life. Again, hearing these words on this campus, and of course, coming to Mona Heights Chapel too, but made such a difference in my life as well. The worship here was great, and not worship like how we sing worship songs. No, it was a quiet worship. It was a different kind of worship, but it was worship. It really touched my heart and transformed my heart. So, what was your question again?
No, man, you answered them
Oh,
fully.
okay,
Fully.
great.
I asked about what would have been some things that made your faith strong, and
Yes,
you gave me many examples.
yes, that's
Thank
what made a difference to me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Bless you, Auntie. Thanks so much.
All right.
All right. All right. So, moving on, I'd actually like to invite persons that are in the hall to come and to just share briefly. Someone else that agreed was actually our brother Philip Simon. So, if you're down, totally. Oh, sure. Yes, there will be no more movies for today.
Morning, everyone. When I was asked, it was just what uh, uh, he asked me to share about how I feel God has been real to me. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my life, some of the key points where I can put up a building block to say, this was one of the points where God has really come through for me, and why I will continue to trust him. So I used to work at a company, a marketing agency, and it was good. I liked what I was doing there at the time, but I never really liked my boss, but I liked the job. Eventually, I realized that I couldn't stand there anymore, so I just had to get out of there. And I remember applying for one job, and I prayed about it, and I said, God, if I'm gonna get this job, I gotta go off and do my own thing. And by own thing, I meant do my own business, right? Because I was doing it somewhat part-time while I was at the marketing agency. And I didn't get the job, and so I went off and I started to do my own business, right? At the same time, I was working as at the school, the basic school. But I left the job in July, so school was still on holiday at the time. They would have started in the summer, in September. So I left in July, and in August now, I would have been on my own completely. And I got one print job in August. And that one print job was double what I would have made in my regular job that I had just quit. And I thought that was a big sign that, maybe I really need to. When I said double, it was exactly double. Like the profit that I would have made was exactly double what I would have made in my regular job. So then after that, it really kind of reassured me that this is, something that I should invest my time in and stuff. And it was pretty new to me because I didn't study anything business in school. I don't know nothing about accounts. I still don't know nothing about accounts. I don't know nothing about tax. All of those things I've been trying to learn as I go along. And so far, the business has been good. It hasn't been without its ups and downs. My parents can tell you that sometimes my cuss and I said, geez, the people them not pay on time and all sort of something. But I still stuck with it. It was good for the first couple of months, and then I realized that people were starting to ask for stuff that I generally could not. I didn't have the machinery to print, right? So I ended up starting to outsource some of those stuff. And people, when you outsource things, you kind of lose the, you lose the authority. You don't have as much control over the turnaround time or sometimes even the quality. But I still, made a good enough network with other printers around me that I was able to do it and still make an income. And that is what I was doing for a couple of years, maybe about 3 years, and then 3 to 4 years. And I realized now that I have to get my own machinery, otherwise it's not really making much sense, because my clientele is growing and the work is growing, but I still have to be outsourcing. But the machinery that I needed is really expensive. If you were to buy maybe something brand new, it would probably cost maybe like 4 million or 5 million, right? So I set out on my search now to try and see how I can acquire this machine. And there were a couple close misses here and there. Like you see one online for sale and it never really worked out. And then you know that Matthew and Kelly now are in Canada. And I said to Matthew, hey, well, let's just check Facebook Marketplace and see what's going on in there. We're searching and we saw one particular listing for a printer and we overlooked it because it almost seemed too good to be true. And we overlooked it twice until Matthew, as a matter of fact, Matthew sent the guy a message without even telling me because I did just feel like it was a scam. And lo and behold, the guy responded and he told us that he had the printer in storage since COVID time and he has been taking good care of it and stuff like that, and him just needed to get out because he needed the space. And that is how I ended up getting a printer that probably cost 3.5 million for like 5,000 Canadian, right? And I'm about to clear that printer right now. So that's another key point for me right there where it comes through, because it has been a lot of stress having to outsource and a big favor here and there just to get some of the jobs done. And one of the last moments now is that with having getting this printer now and stuff like that, I realized that I need my own space because I don't have any space at home or anywhere else for that matter to hold a printer of this size. And so I ended up having a conversation with somebody that I knew from prep school, and he was telling me that he has a place that him interested in renting out and stuff like that. It was kind of expensive, and I was mulling over it for a time, but I just prayed about it and I said, I feel like God kind of put this kind of synergy together, and then now I have my own place, right? Big enough that I can, have all of the machines that I need necessary. And I'm able to create income for other people as well. And I just think that is really good coming from, 6 years ago when I just left the job and I only got one job, and now I have more than enough jobs. Sometimes we can't even manage. So those are some of the three things. One of the three things. One of the other things is during COVID. Everybody losing their mind during COVID. How them getting laid off and them income decreasing and people, all sorts of things. And I never had any of those worries during COVID. Granted, it's not like I own a house, I'm never homeless or anything like that, but my income fell a little bit. But then when people realized that COVID was going to be here to stay and everybody started to customize their masks and stuff like that, that is really what carried me through COVID. And as well, it allowed us to pivot and learn new things that we could produce that we probably wouldn't have seen if not for COVID, right? And some of those things are still going now, because people started to celebrate their birthdays indoors, and they would want different type of memorabilia, canvas photos, things like that. And that is, it really opened up a lot of the merchandise that we now provide and sell. So I'll give God thanks for those things.
All right, so we do have two other persons to share, but I want to know, just bring up what scripture I actually read that made me say, yeah, man, we can go under this thing. I think I had given two scriptures to the guy at the back, first being 1 Thessalonians 5, I believe. Correct, Uncle Dan? I know I gave Titus 2, verses 7 and 8. All right, let's bring up that one first. Right, so no man, we can go back to 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Appreciate that one first. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. Sometimes we just have to talk about the goodness of God. We have to just talk about how in real life, this God of the Bible has come through in everyday situations, in things that are worrisome, in finance, in relationship, in even believing that he's there. I think these are the kind of things that we should be allowed to talk about. Because in this community, we have persons with different needs, and you never know who needs what kind of encouragement. Titus 2. Show yourself in all respects to be a model of good works, and in your teaching show integrity, dignity, continue, and sound speech that cannot be condemned, so that an opponent may be put to shame, having nothing evil to say about us. Amen. All right, so I have two persons left. I think one is in children's church still. I'm not seeing our pastor. Oh, you are here, Auntie. I want to invite Auntie Lisa and Uncles. I think Uncle Stephen is coming too. Both? All right, give them a hand as they come.
Good morning, church. All right, so basically, I'm just doing the intro, and Stephen is going to take over. So we just want to give God thanks for community, because, in some of our lowest moments and our hardest times, God has been faithful in providing people to help us along. So Stephen is going to share a little testimony about our experience last year, November, following Mommy's passing and a lot of changes that took place and how God provided for us.
Good morning. Yeah. All right, so there's a little bit of a correction. I'm going to talk about up to last year, but it goes back even further. It goes back to 2002. So it may seem a little bit lengthy, but bear with us. All right. So in 2002, I had this bright idea of getting married. I had no money, but I had potential. See, I remembered from last week. I had lots of potential, no money whatsoever. So we were looking around for a place to rent, and Lisa worked here at the school. I was at UA. So we wanted somewhere that was close enough that we could, walk to work and so on. So we started looking in Mona. I'm usually very diligent in searching for things. So bought the classifieds every week. The wedding was set for December, and I kept saying to Lisa, listen, can't get married, I would have a house. So we need to find a house before. We'll set dates and everything without any house. Cool. So we're looking. Our budget was non-existent, to say the least. We found a place on Garden Boulevard, right? We went and we took a look at it. There were like 3 houses on the property. The landlady lived at the front, and there were 2 flats to the back. All this time we were looking, this was the only thing that we saw that we felt could work. The lady was nice enough. She only had one condition. We need to wash the windows every Saturday morning. I said to Lisa, boy, the rent is good, but I can't see, be disturbing my Saturday morning to wash the windows. I mean, I'm paying rent. Why do I need to get up every Saturday morning and wash the windows? But, you know, desperation reach you. So I said, boy, look as if we're going to be washing windows. So we're going to take the place. The Sunday we went home, I mean, to my mother's house in Harborview, and we were talking about it, and we were saying, boy, it is what it is. It's the last straw, so we may as well move with it. And while we're talking, one of Lisa's friends called her and said, have you guys found a place as it? And we said, yeah, we think so. And she said, because there's another, you know, there's an option that you could look at. We say, all right, sure, where it is? And she said, it's on Garden Boulevard. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. The house that we went to look at on Garden Boulevard was right beside the house that we just told the lady that we would take, that we'd have to wash the windows every Saturday morning. Now, the rent that we were going to be paying would have been about $20,000, if I remember correctly. Somewhere between 18 and 20. And it wasn't ideal, but anyway. So we went to look at this other place. Perfect, self-contained, big. The landlady was just somebody who believed in giving you privacy. The rent would have been $12,500. It came semi-furnished. And best of all, we didn't have to wash the windows, right? So we said, wow, this is most like, it's a miracle. It's right beside the house that we just took. So we had to call back our prospective landlady and said, listen, we're very sorry, very, very sorry. Well, Lisa told her she was sorry, I didn't. That we couldn't take the place. So we moved into this place and we are good. We stayed there for about 3 years. Our landlady one day came to us and said, you know, you guys looked as if you have outgrown where you are. So, you know, I mean, my antenna gone off. I said, what I mean? Oh, I get notice, what's going on? She said, my son-in-law is migrating and he has a house at the top of Mountain View Avenue. It's a 3-bedroom house. I'm going to talk to him to tell him to rent it to you. I said to Lisa, we don't understand this because I barely have money to pay a 1-bedroom rent. How are we going to rent a 3-bedroom house? Anyway, she spoke to him and convinced him to rent us the house for the same rent that we were paying for the house that we were coming from, the 1-bedroom. $12,500, that was the rent. Now, that's crazy, if you think about it. It's crazy, but that's how God works sometimes, right? Not all the time, actually. So anyway, we stayed there for about 4 years, I think. Leilani was born there. And then one day, the house was being put up for sale. At the time, we weren't in a position to buy it. So we decided that, you know, all right, we'll have to move. We started looking. It was a bit difficult, but we found a house in Vineyard Town. It never seemed too ideal, but you know, sometimes when you think you're back against the wall, you just have to make a decision and just move and just go with it, whatever happens. We did that. And we went there initially, it seemed good after the first day or two, and some of you can relate. You move into a place and everything seemed perfect. And after the first day or week, everything just started crashing down. It was bad. And when I mean bad, I mean like really, really, really bad. As bad as you think it can be, it was actually worse than what you're thinking now. That's how bad it was. I said to Lisa that, listen, I am not comfortable in this place. And I mean, everybody who knows me knows that I'm the quiet person. Lisa is the outgoing one. I get along with everybody, right? And when I tell you that I could not get along with this landlady, you know, say bad, really bad. It got so bad that in the evenings, my routine was I'd come home, drive in the car, lock the gate, through the front door, make a right, go to the bedroom, that was it. I was determined not to establish any permanence in the house. I said to Lisa, do not unpack any boxes, leave them boxed up because once you start unpacking, it means you intend to stay here long. And I'm not staying here long. Boxes were boxed up and everything. So we started house hunting again. I worked at UA, I've been working at UA from 2006. And one day, one of my students said to me that, you still looking for a house? I said, yeah. She said, my husband is a realtor, and there's this property on University Crescent, and he knows the owner. I said, University Crescent, where is that? It's across from UTEC, that road leading down. I said, but hold on, it's a big house down there. I mean, my pocket not that big. And those houses are massive. The land space is huge, huge. She said, no man, let me talk to him. And he called me, told me about the property. We went and took a look at it. And when I drove up and I reached the gate, I looked in and I said, boy, Lisa, might as well just turn back. Because the front yard alone, you could have taken about 2 or 3 houses and put on the front lawn. And same way for the back. And I said, no, Lisa, we can't, no. The rent for them people are going to ask, it can't make it, right? We spoke to the husband, and he said, listen, they just want somebody to live here for a while, so just make them an offer. Tell them what you can afford and see if they will take it. So it's all right. That's all right. I call them bluff. I'm going to put it to the test. At the time when we did our budget, we said the max that we could afford was $50,000. Now, if you think about that property, that's impossible. We told them, so I said to them, $50,000 is what we can afford. They said, sure, you can get it. $50,000. It's all right. all right. And so we stayed there for about 4 to 5 years. Sean was born there. Funnily enough, now that I'm thinking about it, whenever we move somewhere, a child was born. By the way, that's a story for a different day. So we stayed there for about 4 to 5 years. My only regret about living there was that when I first moved there, I said to Lisa that, boy, the front yard is massive. And I said, but, we'd have to pay a gardener. I can just use a lawnmower and just lick off this easy time. No problem. The first Saturday I tried mowing that lawn, I almost died. We started using a gardener after that. So we stayed there for about 5 years, and then we had to move again because they were selling this house. Now, at the time, working at UWI, I was entitled to university housing. So I said, I'm going to apply for UWI housing and see what will happen, right? And applied for university housing. The first house that they showed us was on Palmetto. Went and looked at it, said, boy, this house can't work. The house was termite infested, it wasn't grilled, it was wide open, no security, nothing at all. I said to Lisa that there's no way we can take this house. They showed us another house in Hope Pastures, but they said that, boy, it's not going to be ready as yet. So might as well take the Palmetto house. So now we're caught between, we feel as if we have no choice, no option whatsoever. The Hope Pastures house was perfect, but it wasn't available at the time. So, we are in constant prayer about this thing. And I mean, one day I was going to work, and I said, I remember talking to God and said, boy, this is now desperate. We have to move because the house is being sold. And we really like the Hope Pastures house. So, we put God to the test. I said, boy, if it's your will, let it be done. That was at about 10 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, you will call me and say, you can get the Hope Pastures house. We're going to fast track some stuff so you can get it within a week. Was that all right? So we ended up living at Hope Pastures for about 3 years. Liana was born in Hope Pastures. That's where it ends, though. Nobody else after Liana. Anyway, so we stayed in Hope Pastures for 3 years. And once again, that house was being sold. Very suddenly. Like one day, the owner died, and they came by and said, boy, they have to sell the place. I went to UWI and I said, boy, this is short notice, but now we need to move. And UWI said, well, there's not really much available. The only thing we have is the house on Palmetto. Now, you remember what I told you about the house on Palmetto? Termite infested, no grill, nothing at all there or whatever. We never said any of this to UWI. We just said that we didn't want to live there. When they told us that we could get a house on Palmetto, I said to Lisa, boy, that house was in shambles. When we went to look at it, this is the house that they said we could get. Termite infestation gone. House completely grilled. The house is now configured exactly the way that we wanted it to be 3 years before. And that's the house we now ended up living in. And we stayed there for 7 years. No, I don't think anybody was born there. No, no. So I stayed there for 7 years. Good experience. I mean, last year my mother died, so that was tough. And after she died, I said to Lisa that I really don't want us to stay in this house anymore. I mean, the memories are too painful, and we really wanted a 4-bedroom house because now the children are getting older. Leilani didn't want to share with Leanna anymore. Sean wants his own room. Everybody wants their own room, right? So we started searching. And by the way, if anybody in here needs help looking for houses, come to me. I am very good at, I have been to every type of house. I can tell you some stories, right? I have experience in the field. So we started looking again. We ended up one Sunday, I found a place in Stony Hill. It seemed like perfection, right? This was going to be a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. And I mean, it was perfect in every way. A room for all the children, tons of yard space. The owners liked us. They wanted to rent it to us, but there was one catch. We had to move in immediately. Now, this was in April. There was no way we were going to be able to move in within 1 week. And everybody knows when you move in, it's just like a whole process in and of itself. At that time, my mother was in the hospital. We were going back and forth. We were in no position to move at that point in time. So, I mean, I tried to talk to them, and they were adamant that they needed to rent the place immediately. So they rented it to someone else, and I was upset because I'm looking at it and I said, boy, so this is me talking to God now. I say, if it's not to be, or it was not meant to be, why would you let me see the house and then you take it back? That don't make no sense. It don't matter, it don't add up on none at all. Anyway, so I kept saying to Lisa about, and this encouraged me as well, and saying that it will work out. And so that became our mantra, that things will work out one way or another. I got a new job in August. So now I'm at Maritime. And because I resigned from UE, now the house in Palmetto, I had to move out of that house. So now it was critical that we now found somewhere to live. I submitted my resignation in September. 3 months notice, which meant that I had to get out of that house by November 30th. From September to November, I think we went to about 20 or 30 different houses, near and far. We went all the way up to Cooper's Hill. And for those of you who know Cooper's Hill, far, way up in Cooper's Hill. Went to Portmore, went to Harbour, we went to every single place looking for a house. And I had very specific conditions. Some of my friends were saying, boy, just take any place you can get now, seeing that it's important, and then you can figure it out after you move. I said, no, I'm not settling. I need a 4-bedroom house. They said, listen, it's better you live in a 3-bedroom house and live on the street. I said, no, I need a 4-bedroom house. All right. So we saw a house up on Stony Hill. We got, we went to look at it, and we made an offer. The offer was rejected because it was a little bit too low, about 5,000 less than what they were asking. So, all right, still kept looking. This is now 2 weeks before we now had to move from the house on Palmetto Avenue. And I remember I kept checking the realtor's site. And that same house that we made the offer on that was rejected, I noticed that it kept saying that it was still open for offers. So I called the realtor one day and I say, hey, tell me something. This house that was gone, it's still there. And he said, oh, sometimes when the house is taken off the market, the realtors, they forget to adjust the listing. So it may appear as if it's still there, but it's really not. So I said to him, just check it out for me, please, and just let me know. This is 2 weeks before we have to move. 2 weeks. He calls me back about an hour later and said, guess what? The house is actually still available. The person who had taken it decided they didn't want to live there again because it was too far. He said to me, just increase your offer by a little fraction and let's see what happens. We put in the new offer Friday evening. By Saturday morning, he called me and told me that you have the house. And this house is a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. But here's the funniest part about it. The house, I remember I love Stony Hill from I saw the first house. Remember that house I told you that the owners wanted us to move in immediately? This house that we got was 5 seconds away from that house that the owners took away from us in April. And what I mean 5 seconds away? I mean you're driving up Old Stony Hill Road, you pass that house, and 5 seconds later, the other house is there. And the house that we're in is bigger than the house that we wanted in April. So the lesson for all of this, I mean, you know, when I heard about today, I thought about what kind of testimony would be real to us and that everybody could relate to. And the housing thing came to me. Because it's been a journey, and let me tell you, it's been 22 years it's a real journey for 22 years. And God has been there for us every step of the way where housing is concerned. So it's not something, anxiety, worry will step in, it's natural. But through everything, it's okay to just leave it to God, trust in Him, and sometimes it's good to wait. Because sometimes, we say a little thing, I would jump on it, and we're not waiting, right? We're not being patient. And what our experience with finding somewhere to live has taught us is that be patient and always rely on God.
All right, so I guess when I'm ready to live in my own house, I know where I'm going to go. It has been a full day. It definitely has been a full day. So originally I did have one more person. Can we manage one more, or we think we're good? We're full. We're belly full. We're good. All right. If he doesn't mind, I won't call his name. I'd like your permission to just allow this one to go for this week. Cool? If I could be allowed, I would have, I'd like for this one to probably go on for another week. All right. We have had, depends on the person. No, I'm not calling the name on purpose. Oh my God. No, it wasn't Uncle Derek. I don't mean to. I don't know if I want, I don't, the thing with the brief thing is if it's brief, you might cut some of the details, and the details are important. So, I think we can make it. We can do it, and you know what? All right. Is Pastor. We can make Pastor talk? Is Pastor? All right, Pastor.
Force it and disappoint you. In July 1985, this is, the story about Jacob going to his uncle's place and stopping and sleeping, putting him in a pillow, and had that vision of heaven and angels coming and going, and he named the place Bethel. Later became the worship site. The temple was built there because it says God was there. And I have taken that as this story, a quick story I want to tell you about my Bethel, a place where I have put up my tabernacle, so to speak, to always remember whenever doubts come to my mind. So in 1985, July 1985, I was invited to speak at a retreat for some Queens girls, ISAF group. And that's where I met a young lady by the name of Lydia Dyer. She was the president of the ISAF group at Queens. I was 10 women and me alone as a man at Oberlin. And I tell Lydia that what I remember most of all from that time, in terms, apart from the testimony I'm going to tell you, is her singing and her cornmeal porridge. And she claims that she can't make cornmeal porridge, but that was a good buck-up. Anyway, I shared with them on the very last morning from Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord all thine heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And we came home from Oberlin. I went home, got my stuff together, went back to JTS on campus because I was going to Elim at the time, and we had a cell group party that night. It ended a little bit too late, so I stayed on campus. The next day, when I went home after church, I found out that gunmen were in my parents' house. Gunmen came in the house, held up my parents. And it sent me into deep depression because I said that God kept me away from the house because I would have embarrassed him. I was the only Christian in my house, and God kept me away because I wouldn't have had enough faith to command the gunmen to go and things like that. I went through a deep spiral, you know. Anyway, that day, it was my niece's birthday. It was Sunday, and my mother asked me if I was staying. I said, no, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to church with a very heavy heart because I'm very disappointed. And by the time I was leaving home the evening, I was convinced that my Christianity was a sham and I was going to backslide. And I was going to go to church that night at Elim to prove that God didn't exist. Don't ask me how, but that was my plan. And my mother was very angry at me for leaving again, going to church again. And I went out. We used to live down Beachwood Avenue, near RJ. I went out, took a bus to Halfway Tree, a 13 bus, and then from Halfway Tree, take a 36 bus to Elim. When I got to Halfway Tree, and I put my hand in my pocket and come out, I had $2. It was 80 cents to Halfway Tree and 80 cents to Shortwood Road. No, it was $1 to Halfway Tree and 80 cents to Shortwood Road. So that means I would have left with 20 cents. And it would take me $1 to get back home. And I had a choice to make. Do I go back home now? Walk back home from here, or do I go? Do I go to Elim and then not going to go home? And the thought came to my mind, but aren't you going to prove that God doesn't exist? So go to church, and if you have to walk home tonight, your Christianity done. So I went to church, and as I stepped inside church, Orit Hart was singing. Orit was buried 2 Saturdays ago. Orit was saying, trust in the Lord and don't despair. He's a friend so true. Hallelujah. No. Right. That was me. I stepped in, sat down, and my Bible fell from my hand, and out of the Bible came a Elim newsletter, and I took it up on the back, Proverbs 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. And I was so embarrassed because I had spoken to Lydia and the girls the day before about this very verse, telling them difficulties in life when they come, don't give up. And I sat down there and I repented. And I decided to look around to see if I could get a ride from to go home. And the one person I could get a ride from who would go in my direction didn't come to church that night. So I said, well, this is it, you're going to walk home tonight. And you deserve it because you don't trust God. Anyway, I kind of just enjoyed the church service, totally forgot it, put it out of my mind, stepped out of church. After just having fellowship, when they prepared now to go and walk the 2 or 3 miles home that night, and up came to me a man by the name of Ted Nevers. Some of you might have known Uncle Ted. First time in my life I was talking to Ted Nevers. He shook my hand and left something in my hand. He left $8 in my hand. I needed 80 cents to get home. He left $8. I've asked him why he did it. I didn't tell anybody, but I asked him why he did it. He said he doesn't even know what I'm talking about. And that night, I was working a summer job at Dunlop Cobb in Compton, advertising agency where I used to work before I went to JTS. When I went back to work, Claudette Cook, some of you know Claudette Cook from Covenant Community, she saw me, she said, David, what happened to you? I said, what happened? She said, your face is glowing. I was walking on cloud 9 for about 2 weeks. And I have put that down as my Bethel. That is a time in my life when I look back at all the time when I'm discouraged that God came through for me. Many other times, but that time was a very dramatic time. I was close off in prayer. Just as asked me to close in prayer. Just to mention before we close that our sister Jasmine Taylor, her mom's funeral is on the Saturday, 7th of July.